It's Christmas in Red Bluff, California. A time to dress up, meet Santa, and enjoy a holiday classic at the Old State Theater. But there was a Christmas not so long ago that was not so merry at all, when a shadowy killer left the entire town in terror. Police Chaplain Ron Fortenberry wasn't born in Red Bluff, but he thinks he's going to stay a while.
Red Bluff is the kind of town where you want to raise your kids. It's a town where when people walk down the street, they actually say hi. I love being involved in the police department in a small town. You know all the officers personally.
And one of his favorites is Officer Dave Mobilio.
Dave was a fun-loving guy. He was a prankster, loved kids, a great dad.
With a beautiful wife, a 19-month-old son, and the perfect job, Dave Mobilio has it all. Dave usually works the day shift, but one night he's asked to cover for a fellow officer.
In this department, they all pitch in for each other. Dave was asked to do a job. He was needed that night. He answered the call.
At first, it seems like just another routine shift, until Dave makes a stop for fuel.
Dave had gone out to fuel at Warner's Petroleum. He notified dispatch that he was 10-7 or out of service for fuel. The next normal protocol would be when you're done with that assignment that you notify dispatch that you're 10-8 or back in service.
But something goes wrong.
Dave never went 10-8. Dispatch notified the on-duty sergeant.
Sheriff's Department, do you have a unit that could respond to Warner's Petroleum, Mr. Susan? Yeah, who did you?
The sergeant responded from the south end of town. When he pulled up, he located Dave on the ground.
What's the matter?
Dave's deceased.
What?
I said he's been killed in a homicide.
Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God.
Dave has been shot 3 times, twice in the chest and once in the back of the head.
When he responded, the gas pump was still in Dave's car. That was significant. That showed that the attack occurred as soon as he got here. Officer Mobilio was found located on the pavement right here next to the patrol cars. His head was towards this metal post here. His service weapon was about maybe 10 feet in front of him out there in the pavement.
But the most confusing aspect of this crime scene is what it's missing.
Crime scene investigators and detectives checked the area. They didn't find any shell casings from the suspect.
And finally, there's one last clue so menacing, investigators decide to keep it to themselves.
The suspect had left a small flag, basically in a pool of Dave's blood. It was a homemade flag. It had a coiled snake on it. It said, "Don't tread on us," and it also said this was a political action. This is a crucial piece of evidence that we withheld from the public and the media.
The Red Bluff PD has just lost one of its own. The heartbreaking call goes out on the radio.
187, he's been shot
at Warner, yeah, across the Adobe. We have an officer who who's inside and dead.
Within hours, nearly the entire Red Bluff police family gathers at the scene.
So it was a very surreal moment. I remember walking onto the scene, walking by Dave's body, looking down thinking, I can fix this. I need to just get over there and get him up. Pray for him and have him just get up and go back to work.
The next morning, nothing, not even Etta's famous buttermilk pancakes, can help the town make sense of this unimaginable crime.
Yeah, it's such a shock. Nothing like that ever happens in Red Bluff.
You know, the last time a police officer was killed was 100 years ago.
We love the police officer here in Red Bluff.
The Red Bluff cops are so popular, they even have their own trading cards. With no big league baseball team in town, the local heroes are officers like Jason Beeman and Kyle Sanders. Their fearless leader is Chief Al Shamblin, and he's now facing one of the toughest cases of his life.
Dave and I, we were friends. We had worked together on the street. When we got the information, it really hit us hard, both myself and my wife. And not just us. It hit the entire department very, very hard. This was truly devastating.
But for the chief, grieving will have to wait. There's a mysterious killer on the loose, one who may be targeting his police force.
We didn't know whether they were targeting Dave specifically or whether they were targeting police officers in general, so we've doubled up all the cars and we're taking as many precautions as we can.
With no witnesses and few clues, state investigator Steve Hirigoyen comes to meet with Chief Shamblin. They hope a closer look at the crime scene will lead them to a suspect before he strikes again.
Basically, some of the things that pop out at us is obviously this is somewhat a remote area. There's nothing around it with the exception of one business across the street, railroad tracks behind it. And we examined the gas pump, and actually the gas pump was in the process of being manipulated as well. Okay. So it looks like it was a surprise attack.
Dave never had a chance. The ambush seems to have occurred just moments after he arrived at the pump.
The one thing we do not see is any shell casings.
Shell casings would help indicate what kind of gun was used. The lack of shell casings leaves more questions than answers.
We're not sure if this was a rifle shot or a handgun shot, whether or not they took time to collect shell casings, and we still don't know whether or not he's actually close to him or that he was far away and shot with a rifle. We don't know that yet. So that's a big question in our mind.
But the biggest question of all concerns the banner that was left on Dave's body.
Obviously, we're not looking at something that's a random act of violence. The person, came prepared to commit a murder and also leave his calling card behind for us to deal with.
But was he out to attack any member of the Red Bluff PD? Or Dave Mobilio himself? Whoever the gunman is, he went to that gas station with a purpose. And he may not be done yet. It's Thursday morning at the Jackson Heights Elementary School. Normally, the kids would be looking forward to a visit from DARE officer Dave Mobilio. Instead, students and teachers alike mourn his loss.
It's hard to believe Dave used to be here every Thursday.
It was really great for the kids to have Dave as a role model.
Such a huge man in stature, but he also was huge in their eyes for other reasons, I think.
Dave was indeed a huge man and a regular at the local gym. The news of Dave's death hits his workout buddies hard.
So when did you hear that Dave was killed?
I was actually here working out. It was just more of a, did you hear about Dave? And more disbelief, like that can't be true. Who could possibly do something like this?
Dave's buddies can't imagine that somebody would want him dead. But is it possible there was more to Dave than met the eye?
One of the difficult things that we had to do was to determine why they may have targeted Dave.
And that means that Chief Shamblin has to ask some tough questions.
We had to look into Dave's personal life. Was there any conflicts in his private life? Were there any conflicts within the job?
But the chief finds nothing.
He was highly respected, not only by our department, by the community, by the parents, by the students. Got along very well with his wife and family. And so there was nothing there to indicate that's where this investigation should be focused.
It seems Dave was a great guy after all. But it's not all good news for the Red Bluff PD.
So we started looking at if they weren't targeting Dave as a person, were they targeting our department?
With a cop killer on the loose, the Red Bluff police family is stretched to its breaking point.
The atmosphere changed after Dave died. To have such a violent incident take down one of their brothers caused them a lot of terror.
There was a lot of concern across the department. Lots of families, lots of wives, pretty well pleading with their husbands not to go to work, for fear that they may not return.
The fear is contagious. When Ehorn Antiques opens for business, it doesn't take long for talk to turn to the dreadful crime.
Just shocking that a police officer in our little town was shot.
It's unbelievable.
It's just cold-blooded murder, When something like this happens, it just makes you feel less safe in your community. You're just devastating.
And scary.
Yep.
He's out there somewhere.
Right.
As investigators struggle to find a motive for this seemingly random killing, an intriguing new possibility comes to light.
Prior to Dave being murdered, we had an incident in which a person died while in custody. We were also aware of the fact that the family was not exactly happy with the Red Bluff Police Department.
Could Dave's murder have been a deadly act of revenge? Police spring into action, jumping on this new lead.
The investigators were looking at a number of family members. They held interviews, followed up leads, talked to various people.
But they don't come up with any concrete information. It appears to be another dead end. But then, with the investigation at a standstill, a new theory arrives, wrapped in the morning paper.
About the same time that Dave was murdered, had the sniper attacks occurring on the East Coast. The sniper attacks, they were random shootings of people going about their regular business, including people that were filling up their cars at gas stations.
Now, Red Bluff faces a terrifying scenario. A copycat sniper may have set his sights on this sleepy town. If so, anyone could be his next victim. The holiday season in Red Bluff is usually a time to look back to the town's Victorian past and ponder the next salmon run on the Sacramento River. But this year, all anyone can think about is the possibility of a cold-blooded sniper on the loose.
It could be a scare program. Maybe somebody's trying to scare us into being scared of everything.
That's true.
Even gas in their cars.
It's just frightening to know that you could live here and go get gas and be shot.
Well, why would you just go shoot a guy pumping gas?
Dave's murder is chillingly similar to many of the East Coast sniper attacks. State investigator Steve Hirigoyen requests a ballistics test to find out what kind of killer they're dealing with.
Hi, Ron. How you doing? Getting ready to do a test fire. We've got it closed up, turned on, ready to go. And once we get the test fires, then we can do a comparison to the bullets that were recovered at the autopsy.
This test is their best chance to find out if Dave was indeed killed by a long-range sniper.
I've got the land impression on the one of the bullets recovered at the autopsy, and I've got it compared up against the scale. I've measured the width of the land impressions and put the information into the database. And we've got a fairly short list of weapons that could have possibly fired this bullet. Right at the top of the list would be the 6 Sauer P229.
The 6 Sauer is a .40 caliber handgun, effective from only 20 yards. One of the investigation's most puzzling questions has just been answered.
Steve, I know you're familiar with the sniper incidents. Think there's any possibility it could be connected or a copycat?
I think it's unlikely, and let me explain why. It's not a sniper attack. There's not a rifle being used. We're talking a handgun. It's a .40 caliber, and we're looking at 3 manufacturers of handguns. The most common or prevalent would be the SIG.
This particular handgun sends the investigation in a shocking new direction.
Okay, 6 Sauer. Were actually used by a lot of law enforcement agencies.
It's a devastating thought. Could the killer be a fellow police officer?
Obviously, we're concerned with the fact we didn't find any shell casings at the scene.
So either the person responsible collected the shell casings when he left, or he used some other means to collect the shell casings when he fired the weapon.
The killer is no fool. He seems to know how important shell casings can be to an investigation. And this gives detectives a chilling glimpse into his mindset.
Well, obviously, the suspect felt comfortable to stay there to pick up his evidence and also put that banner behind.
This killer is fearless, calculating, and possibly a professional. And his identity is still a mystery. When it comes time for Dave's funeral, his loved ones and admirers come out in force.
The town and the county shut down that day. It was the most amazing show of support that you'll ever see.
To a very solemn ceremony that we prayed would never come.
As Red Bluff gathers to say goodbye, Dave Mobilio's killer is still out there. Then, a shocking development comes to light.
We'd received information that there was a confession on the internet. We'd learned that a person had admitted to killing a police officer in the city of Red Bluff.
The internet confession is signed Andrew McCrae. He claims to represent a group called Proud and Insolent Youth Incorporated.
We were skeptical about the first email that came across, whether or not it was authentic. And as additional information came in, we realized there was some validity to it.
A nationwide manhunt begins for self-proclaimed killer Andrew McCrae.
We had law enforcement agencies from surrounding counties, our county, the FBI, Department of Justice, all come together in a very quick fashion.
A tip comes in from a police department 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, this is Al Shamblin. As we were contacted by law enforcement agencies on the East Coast, we learned that his actual true name was Andrew Mickle.
Police decide to bring Mickle in for questioning, but when they go to pick him up, they find their prime suspect has flown the coop. Can they catch him before another victim pays the price? The late-night killing of a Red Bluff cop leads to a nationwide manhunt for 23-year-old college student Andrew Mickle. Mickle is known for his strong anti-government sentiments, but that's not all.
The investigation determined that he had been in the Army and was trained as a Ranger.
While the internet posting could still be a hoax, investigators believe that Army Ranger training could explain a lot.
You know, it's my belief that he used some of that training that he received to actually identify his target and to carry out his mission.
The FBI tracks Mickle to a motel in Concord, New Hampshire. SWAT officers descend on the scene, but Andrew refuses to come out.
The standoff itself took some time to resolve. The authorities took considerable caution by evacuating the hotel and not knowing exactly who they were dealing with.
Before he will surrender, Andrew Mickle makes a bizarre request.
He wanted basically a forum with a reporter to tell his side of the story, what he was trying to convey and why he was doing this.
What I would want to happen is for police officers to stop abusing our rights and to stop abusing the authority that they have. But if they don't, I would hope that other people would step forward and do stuff like this.
Once Mickle has had his say, he gives himself up. At his trial, Mickle serves as his own attorney.
And the opening statements prior to the trial even starting, Mickle admitted that he murdered Dave to make a political statement. It was somewhat of a shock.
Finally, the truth of what happened that night comes out.
Andrew Mickle came into our city, identified where the officers filled up their patrol cars. He then went to the station in the middle of the night, hid behind a dumpster. Dave pulled up to fuel up his patrol car. Mickle charged. Mickle fired 2 shots, both of which struck Dave in the abdomen, knocking him to the ground. Mickle fired the fatal shot to the back of the head that killed the officer.
And investigators also present a key piece of evidence that explains the missing shell casings: Andrew Mickle's homemade brass catcher. After a short trial and just 30 minutes of deliberation, Andrew Mickle is found guilty and sentenced to death.
It was a sense of release, like somebody lifting a veil from the department. I think it was a huge relief to most of us that he was convicted.
But some questions are never answered.
Of all the areas around the nation, why Red Bluff, California? And that has never been answered, and that question still remains out there.
For Pastor Ron, his faith says forgive, but he will never forget.
Forgiveness is something we have to do. You have to forgive because it only hurts you if you don't. I don't think I'll ever understand a heart, though, that can coldly go up to an officer and shoot him like he did.
The killing of Officer Dave Mobilio devastated the quiet town of Red Bluff. Now, with justice finally served, all that's left is to remember and pay tribute.
You know, Dave's really going to be missed around here.
Yeah, these kids will never have the opportunity to meet such a fine person.
But he'll never be forgotten.
Nope, he'll go on and on.
It's just about time to put out a new series of police department trading cards. Some of the guys may look a bit older this time around, but one face will remain frozen in time, ever young and never forgotten.